Jeffrey Allen Robinson was born on April the 24th, 1962 at 8:47 p.m. You weighed 7 pounds and 13 ounces and were 20 inches long. When you were born, you had a 2-year-old sister. Her name is Jacqueline Evelyn. This is the house that you came home from the hospital to and where you lived until 1969. This is at 30783 Brentwood, Southfield, Michigan. This is the little suit that Annie Jack bought you when you were born for your baby gift. You were born at the Detroit Osteopathic Hospital in Highland Park, Michigan. You were born with gray-blue eyes and long dark brown hair. Here you are at 6 weeks old. Your sister used to love to take care of you. I had to watch her very carefully so she didn't try to cram you into her little doll buggy. You were a very sweet and a very lovable little baby. You minded very well, and you were content to play in your playpen. When you were 2.5 months old, you were laughing out loud and you were gooing at us. When you were 5 months old, you were sitting up all by yourself. I thought you were so smart I had to go get all the neighbors to come in and see you. At 5.5 months, you were beginning to crawl around. And by 10 months, you were walking. On October the 28th, 1962, you had your first haircut. Uncle Cliff cut your hair in Flint, Michigan. You had a terrible time when you were young with your teeth. As you were a toddler and you were walking around, you kept falling and knocking out your baby teeth. Here you are in 1963 with your father and your sister Jackie in your little swimming pool in the backyard of our house on Brentwood. If you look really carefully there up on your left shoulder, you might be able to see your little pet parakeet. This was taken in the yard of your Arkansas grandma's house. You're the little one on the right-hand side, and your sister's on the left. On April the 26th, 1963, we celebrated your first birthday. We had asked Uncle Bill and Aunt Carly and Krista and Edie and Danny and Carol over for dinner, but Krista came down with the measles the day before, so they couldn't come. So we had Uncle Joe and Aunt Miggs and Uncle Lee and Margie and Annie Jack and David and Grandma Miller. Here you are, Easter of 1973. If you look over there underneath the television set, you can see a little Chihuahua, and that was the first animal you ever had. Here you are with your sister. You're always so content. You'd sit in your high chair and look around and wouldn't complain at all. You'd play so hard all day long, and at the end of the day you were tired and you'd go to bed and you wouldn't fuss or cry. Here you are with your father in 1963. This is in the fall of 1963. I'm pulling you and your sister around the backyard in Southfield, Michigan in your little red wagon. Here you are at 16 months old in your little white silk shirt and your dark brown velvet pants. Here you are, Christmas of 1963, opening up one of your presents. Here's your father playing you and your sister Jackie a tune on the guitar. I'm sure it must have been a Christmas song. This is our side yard where we lived on Brentwood. We used to shovel back the snow, and we had an ice skating rink here. And here's your sister and you on a saucer sitting in the middle of the ice rink. And when you all were very small, you learned how to ice skate. Here you are in 1964. Doesn't this look like Joshua? Here you are with your sister. She was always such a little mother to you. The summer of 1964 we spent up to the little cabin in East Tawas, Michigan. We had just come back from swimming and Grandpa Miller took our picture sitting outside of the woodpile. You always loved to run up and down the beach and play in the water and build sand castles. You'd been playing out in the yard with your friends. Look at that dirty face. This is in our yard in Southfield. You're in your pool. You're the little one sitting on the right-hand side, Jeff. And that's your friend Darren Harper standing up on the left. And in the back is your sister Jackie. And in the front is little Marilyn, who lived next door to Heidi and Darren. Here you are again with your little parakeet on the front of your shirt this time. On October the 11th, 1964, you were baptized at the First United Presbyterian Church at 13 and Crooks in Royal Oak, Michigan. Here you are at 2 years old. This is in the winter of 1964. Your father made this igloo for you and your sister to play in. And if you look real careful, you can see you inside. Here you are out playing in the snow and helping to get some snow for the igloo. On February the 12th, 1964, your brother Gordon Bradley was born. And this is he. Look at how excited he looks and the big smile on his face. This picture was taken over to Uncle Lee and Aunt Margaret's house, and that little sailor outfit that you have on, that was made from the material in a sailor outfit that Uncle Lee had. He was a sailor, and that little sailor suit was made for your cousin David, Uncle Lee's son, and now you're wearing it. Here you are on an Easter egg hunt in 1965. Look at the little egg you found. Here you are again in 1965. These next 4 pictures of you are also taken in 1965.
I am Elm, the ancient elm tree. I've stood right here behind the old house, above this old garden for a long, long time. I love this place. You could say my roots are here. My arms reach up to touch the sun. I spread my shade for everyone. Song my whole life long. You wouldn't believe it, but this old house used to be beautiful, full of life and laughter. Families made it their home, but families come, then they're gone. They stay a while, they move on, but I will stand here tall and strong my whole life long. Yes, I've stood here all days, thunder, lightning, wild hurricanes, cold winter nights, and warm summer rains. Squirrels will climb, chipmunks too, birds will build a stone. Oh, what's an old tree to do? One spring, on the day that the last family left, a little girl stood below me, crying over the garden she tended so carefully. Her tears fell on the flowers, and as she walked away, something amazing happened. Her flowers began to walk and talk, laughing and playing in the sun. And now they've become my family, and the happiest, most beautiful of all is Rose Petal.
Rose Petal Place is a magic world full of love and grace, where a little girl just like you finds that dreams can come true. A friendly place, Rose Petal Place.
This is Christmas of 1965. There's your sister Jackie and Jeff and your brother Gordon with Santa Claus.
And you.
This is a camping trip that we went on in the summer of 1966. Can you see that pop-up that's kind of at the front of the picture? That belonged to Janet and Floyd. And the trailer that's behind it with the striped awning is Uncle Cliff and Aunt Betty's. And this trailer over here, the white one with the white back, that's ours. And the 3 families used to camp together a lot. We had taken your friends Tommy and Maria Stacia with us on this camping trip. You had been playing some games, and Tommy and your sister Jackie had won a hat. and your brother Gordon won a big bag of candy. And I think you're trying to talk him into sharing it with you. This is a picture of your great-grandmother and your grandfather Miller. Are with your father in 1966 listening to him play his guitar. These pictures were taken in 1966 at one of our local 5 and 10 cent stores in Royal Oak, Michigan. You used to sit in a little booth and drop in a quarter, and it would snap 4 pictures. If you look real careful at this picture, you can see that your sister has her 2 front teeth missing. Jackie and Jeff and Gordy are playing on your swing set in the backyard on Brentwood in Southfield. This is Christmas of 1966. This is a summer day in 1967. You and your brother Gordon spent the afternoon with your Grandma Miller. That looks like your play tent you have pitched there in the backyard. This is out in front of our house on Brentwood in Southfield, Michigan. You and your sister have met some of your friends and you're on your way for your first day of school. Your sister's on the far left and you're the second one on the right, I believe. This is outside of Greenfield Elementary School, which was the first school that you went to, and it was in Beverly Hills, Michigan. This is your first school picture. This is your kindergarten class at Greenfield School. This is in the fall of 1967. All of our aunts and uncles and cousins used to get together once a year out to a place called Hayride Lodge. And this is in the lodge. They had lots of things for you children to do. And this is a wooden horse that your sister's riding, and you're sitting there on the right on the piano bench. This is also out to Hayride Lodge. That's your Aunt Betty and Uncle Don and your sister Jackie, and you're on the horse now, Jeff. This was a family get-together we had out to your great-grandma and Grandpa McKechnie's house on 15 Mile Road in Troy. And on the right, in the red sweater, is your cousin Danny. And next to him is your cousin Kevin. And then I think that's Carol, and then your sister Jackie, and you, and Krista, and Edie. On December the 13th, 1966, your youngest brother, Gregory Lee, was born.
Here you are, Christmas of 1987. How about 1977?
1967.
How about 1967? Let's make that 67.
Here you are in the summer of 1968, getting ready to do a backflip into the pool in Grandma Miller's backyard.
Wow, got his pants on too.
This is on the back porch of our house on Brentwood, and that's Jeff and Gordy. This is the summer of 1968. You and your sister are out at the farm with one of your ponies by the name of Comanche. In 1967, your Auntie Jack purchased 3 ponies for your children. This pony, Comanche, is the first one, and then she purchased Ahab and Fatima. This was a first grade school picture that was taken at Greenfield Elementary School in Michigan. This is Christmas of 1968. That's you and your father.
Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain,
Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain, that Jesus Christ is born.
This is your Arkansas grandma and you and your brother Gordy, and your Arkansas grandma has taken you fishing. This was the summer of 1969. This is the summer of '69 in Aunt Margaret and Uncle Lee's backyard in Michigan. Here you are with your sister. Aunt Margaret had picked you up and brought you to her house for the day. And you're getting back in her car and she's ready to bring you back home. Here you are over to the side, Jeff, on the left-hand side, and that's your brother Greg. He looks like he's going to drive the car, doesn't he? Here you are at Annie Jack's house with her dog, Goober P. This is late August of 1969 outside of our house on Brentwood in Southfield. Shortly after this picture was taken, the latter part of September, we moved to Hikes Point, Kentucky. This picture was taken a few weeks after we arrived in Kentucky and our first trip to the Louisville Zoo. Here you all are feeding the animals. This is in the kitchen of our house on Blossomwood, and you're having a dish of ice cream. This is the end of October in 1969, and this is our first trip on the Belle of Louisville. There's you 4 children standing at the bottom of the gangplank. Your father's taking you 3 boys on a ride on your sled in the winter of 1969. Jeff and Greg going through your Christmas stockings on Christmas 1969. This is the early summer of 1970, and that's Jeff and Gordy and Greg outside of our house on Blossomwood in Hikes Point, Kentucky. There's Jackie and Jeff and Gordy and Greg in front of the house on Blossomwood Drive. This is in your Arkansas grandma's side yard, and she's spraying you with the hose. This is in Elmira, Arkansas. This was taken at Rough River, where we took a trip for the day. In the summer of 1970, Aunt Margaret and Uncle Lee came down to visit us, and we took them to Churchill Downs for the day. And here's you 4 children sitting on the bench with Aunt Margaret outside of Churchill Downs. This picture was taken in your Arkansas grandma's house, and she's cleaned some fish that you've caught, and here you are washing them in the sink. This is in the living room of your Arkansas grandma's house. There's you 3 boys, and that's her dog up on the arm of the chair, the little gray poodle, and I can't remember what its name was. You boys used to love to go out to Fort Knox and climb all over the army tanks. And here you are on top of one of the tanks. And here is Jeff, Gordy, and Greg standing beside one of the tanks. Remember the big slide they had up at Hikes Point in the Kmart parking lot? Well, there you are coming down. Here your sister and yourself are coming down the sky slide. As I remember, you used to get 3 slides for 25 cents. This is some of your PWP friends. We all spent the day at Bernheim Forest. You're sitting on the ground in the blue shirt, and your brother Gordy is propped up against the horse or whatever it is you're standing on, and he's got the orange striped shirt and the brown pants on. Here you are up on the, what is that, a deer? Up on the wooden deer's head, Jeff. And here you are in your Cub Scout uniform. Here you are in 1970 in your Cub Scout uniform. This is in the backyard of our house on Blossomwood Drive. This is the Kentucky State Fair, and you and your sister are up in the Ferris wheel. And here's your brother Gordon up in the Ferris wheel. You and Greg are with the animals at the fair. You used to love to go and watch the animals and to pet them. Uncle Murray and Aunt Dolores and your cousin Robin came down to visit us. And when we woke up one morning, there was snow on the ground. And here is Jackie and Jeff and Robin on the toboggan. And within a few hours, it was all melted. In the early part of December of 1970, your great-grandfather McKechnie came down and spent a few weeks with us on his way to Florida. This picture and the next two are taken over to Seneca Park when you're sliding down the hills.
Do it if we want to, together. Now's the time for you to try, It's time to sell our cookies.
This is your great-grandfather McKechnie. In 1957, your grandma and grandpa McKechnie sold their home in Troy, Michigan, and your grandfather turned over his business, the C&M Manufacturing Company, to his children, and he and your great-grandmother moved to Florida. They gave me all of their outdoor Christmas lights. And this is Christmas of 1970, and your great-grandfather is sitting at our table on Blossomwood, and he's restringing those Christmas lights. And those are the lights that you have now, Jeff, that you put around your house at Christmas time. Those were your great-grandmother and grandfather McKechnie's lights, and they're probably well over 50 years old. Here you children are, December of 1970, putting up our Christmas tree. And here we are, Christmas morning of 1970. Didn't you children do a beautiful job with our Christmas tree? And it looks like Santa Claus was very good to us that year. Here's Jackie and Jeff and Gordy and Greg and Aunt Margaret, 1971. And here's Jackie, Jeff, and Gordy and Greg in the living room of Blossomwood Drive. Your brother Gordon received a little aftershave kit, or a little shaving kit for his birthday in 1971, and here you are shaving. That's your brother Gordon's hand sticking out there. He's handing you the aftershave lotion. Here you are in the garage of our house on Blossomwood Drive, and you're working on one of the bikes in your bike business. This is in Michigan at Uncle Cliff and Aunt Betty's house. And there's Uncle Cliff standing up there at their pool. And that's you on the right side of him, Jeff. And your brother Greg on the left. And next to Greg is your cousin Robin. And in the water is your cousin Kevin. Do you remember those big plastic snakes that Uncle Cliff and Aunt Betty bought you kids? I think we still have a couple around here someplace. Here you are sitting in the backyard of Grandma Miller's house with Goober P and Snoopy. Here's Jackie, Jeff, and Gordy and Greg standing in front of Annie Jack's fireplace. And here's Jeff, Gordy, and Greg in the photo booth up at the Five and Dime. Aren't you being silly, Jeff? This is Easter of 1971. Here's the four of you at the reception center out to Fort Knox. We went out to see your cousin Craig when he graduated from his basic training. And here's Uncle Cliff and your Aunt Betty and Cousin Craig. And here's Craig. This is after the graduation, and all the men that he went through training with are getting all lined up to get on the bus, and they're getting ready to leave Fort Knox. This is during the time of the Vietnam conflict, and you had four cousins that were all drafted out of college. Craig Anschutz, Murray McKechnie Jr., Billy McKechnie, and David Morrison. The three of them were sent to Vietnam, and Craig went to Korea. Here you are, sound asleep in your bed, in your bedroom on Blossomwood Drive. You had all cars in your room, and you wanted the dark blue walls. I had a terrible time with those walls. This is a blue and gold banquet that your pack had, and your den won first place for their table decorations. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy 9th birthday to you. Happy 9th birthday, dear Jeffrey. Happy 9th birthday to you. Here you and I are out to the Middletown Christian Church in Middletown, and we're getting ready to go on the 10-mile Massacre Trail hike. This is Halloween of 1971, and there's Jeff, Gordy, and Greg, and that tall man behind you in the white shirt is the dummy that you stuffed. Christmas of 1971, Jeff and Greg are sitting on Santa Claus's lap. Jingle bell, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. We wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. This is in 1973. You boys are standing on the porch at Grandma Miller's house, and that looks like Goober Pea you're holding there, Jeff. Have you been working on Annie Jack's car, Jeff? This is an evening that you spent with Annie Jack at her house. And here's Annie Jack with Jeff and Gordy and Goober Pea. Good morning. Here's Jeff, Gordy, and Greg standing on the porch on Vermont. And here's Jeff and Gordy on the porch. And here you are in 1972 in your Weeblo outfit. This was at a blue and gold banquet, and these are all the decorations that your group of boys had made. These are some more of the table decorations that your pack made for the blue and gold banquet. Here you are standing in front of the fireplace of the living room of our house on Blossomwood. You're getting ready to go to your Cub Scout meeting. And you see that little bucket in your hand? That's your little treat bucket. And each week a different the boys took that bucket home, and you took it back the next week with a treat in it and shared this with all the boys. This is at a pack meeting. Once a month, all the dens in your area, which was Ascension, would meet up to Ascension for their pack meeting. And that was also an awards night, and any of the boys that had achieved their goals would receive their award. And this is you and your brother Gordon and I, and we're standing up there, and the pack master is passing out both of you boys an award. Here you are with one of your scouting friends. I think that's Chris Johns. This picture was taken at the Chirac School at a carnival they had one day. I don't remember if you will remember this particular day or not, Jeffrey, but you had sold a lot of donuts for the Boy Scouts, and we had, I don't know, something like 15 cases of the darn things we had to deliver. And we didn't have a car, so we had to ride our bicycles, and we rode our bicycles all over Hikes Point to deliver these donuts, you and I. And it was hot and sweaty, and then I had to work at this carnival. And they gave me the cotton candy booth, and I was all hot and sweaty, and when I'm making this cotton candy, it's sticking all over my body. And I look like a big gob of cotton candy by the end of the day. This picture was taken out to Bernheim Forest. This picture was taken over to Seneca Park, and you're all playing in the creek, close to Big Rock. On the back of this picture, it said that it was taken out in Prospect. This was the day that the 5 of us went on a picnic, and we found this waterfall way back in the woods. And I didn't remember exactly how we got there or where it was, and I've never been able to find it since. This is a little better picture of you 4 standing in front of the waterfall. This was taken on a weekend that our cousin Craig came down to visit us. I was so surprised to see that he was allowing you boys to sit all over his Corvette. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy 10th birthday, dear Jeffrey. Happy 10th birthday to you. Here you are in the family room of our house on Blossomwood, playing a game. This is a PWP outing we went on one day to Ghost Town on the river. Here we are going to the forts at Ghost Town. This is a track meet that you had at Wagner High School. Here you are, getting your medal. This is another run that you were in at Wagner. You came in second at this run and the one just before. Here you all are coming home from school. This is Christmas of 1972. This is a picture that you drew in the 7th grade. I'm not quite sure how you done it, but it looks like maybe you drew the picture and then you colored it in with very colorful crayons, and then you took a black crayon and covered over the top of all that with a black crayon, and then you scraped the black off so that you have that antique kind of a cast to it. We've had this hanging on the wall ever since you brought it home from school. This is the Dalmatian you children used to have. His name was Wimpy. We had him for about a year and a half, I guess, and one afternoon I went out to call you to come in for supper, and while I was out getting the four of you all rounded up, he got up on the table and ate all the dinner. And after that, we gave him to Janet and Floyd, and they took him out to the country. This picture was taken down at Mammoth Cave. That's Annie Jack's friend Steve and me, and that's you, Jeff, over to the left side in the blue shirt. And Annie Jack and Steve came down and took us to Mammoth Cave for the day. Here you are, riding your bike down Blossomwood Drive. This is your sister and you sitting in the living room on Blossomwood Drive. This was taken at the Kentucky State Fair, where we spent the day with people from PWP. And there's Jackie, Jeff, Gordy, and Greg. This experience didn't turn out as well as I wished it had. You boys kept wanting to smoke. So one day I said, fine, if you want to smoke, I'll get you some cigars and I'll get you an ashtray and you can smoke all you want. Well, you smoked all the cigars and you got awful sick afterwards, but you all still smoke, with the exception of Jeff, and he quit about a year ago to this day. So it wasn't much of a learning experience. Here you are at the Detroit Zoo. This is at Atherton High School. You went there for the day for a track and field day, and you won second place in this picture in the softball throw. Here you are hitting a ribbon for first place in the 440 run. And here's the clown congratulating you on all your wins that day. This was taken up to Santa Claus, Indiana, where we spent the day with a bunch of people from PWP. And here you are on the train at Santa Claus Land. This is a ride that you went on at Santa Claus Land, and you're up in that top basket, Jeff, and that's your brother Gordy just below you, and I don't know who the other little boy is. There you are, getting a haircut. This is a school picture from Great House. This was your class in 1973. This is a picture that you made in elementary school. You've taken little tiny squares of different colored paper and hooked them all together in a mosaic look and made this pilgrim. This is a program you were in at school called A Look at the Library. This picture and the next two were taken up in Indianapolis, Indiana, when the 5 of us took Frankie up to see Michael and Deanne one day. And this is a park that we were playing at. From 1970 to 1974, you boys and your sister used to spend most of your summers up in Michigan. And that way I was able to work 2 jobs during the summer, which helped to get us through the winter. And you'd spend much of that time up with Uncle Cliff and Aunt Betty and your Grandma Miller. And this picture was taken up at Uncle Cliff and Aunt Betty's house when your grandma was there, and you're sitting out in the yard, you 3 boys, with Snoopy. And here you are, Jeff, on the riding lawnmower. I wonder if you've been cutting the grass or just playing. This next series of pictures Aunt Betty had developed and sent to each of you children for your album. When you were up there in 1973 is when Uncle Cliff began the work on putting in their big in-ground swimming pool. And he said often that he would have never gotten it finished if you 4 hadn't helped him. And this is the first step in putting in the pool. You shoveled and you dug and you helped to move all that dirt around. Here's Jackie and Jeff and Gordy putting the dirt up in the truck so that you could take it out in the field and dump it. You all worked so hard, and Uncle Cliff and Aunt Betty really appreciated all that you did. Think of all the knowledge all of you gained on putting in a swimming pool. How many people have that knowledge? I bet it was really exciting for the 4 of you to help with this and to watch it materialize. I think that's Gordy. And here's Uncle Cliff making some last-minute adjustments before you get ready to fill the pool. And here's the pool finished and all filled full of water. And there's the four of you standing up there so proud, looking at all the work that you've done and what you have now. And there you are, Jeff, with your inner tube all ready to jump in. You children had a lot of fun in that pool. And your children had fun in that pool up until last year, I guess, 1987, when Aunt Betty was out cleaning the pool and she fell over backwards and she hurt herself real bad. She spent quite a while in the hospital. And then the pool just kind of frightened her. And so she had it all filled in. So she has grass planted there now. During your trip up north, you always had to go out to the trampolines out in Tawa City and play. And there was always someone more than willing to take you all out there. You sure enjoyed that, Jeff. This was out to Uncle Bill and Aunt Carly's house. You're riding with your cousin Dan on the back of his motorcycle. Here you are swimming in Lake Huron. Is this what you call a bump on a log? Looks like the bump on the log is fishing. And I believe that's the dock in East Tawas. Or is it Tawa City? Maybe Tawa City dock. Is that some fish I see over there against that post? This was your classroom door at Great House. And every year they used to have a contest and they would choose a student to do the door of their classroom, and then they would have a contest to see which was the winning door. And you were the one that was chosen on this particular year to design the door, and you also won the prize. This was the Christmas socks that your class made at Great House and had them hanging on a bulletin board in the hall. And here you are showing me which was the sock that you made. And we still have that sock, and I hang it out every Christmas. This was a Christmas party that we went to with PWP, and you're all standing up there with Santa Claus. Jackie looks like she's kind of bashful, doesn't she? I'm not sure what's wrong with Gordy. Maybe he could just kind of care less. And look at Greg. And here you are on Christmas morning of 1973, emptying out your Christmas stocking. Here you are in 1974 with the mumps. You have cheeks like Gordy now. And you don't seem too unhappy about it. There you are with some of our PWP friends' children at the park. There you are playing with Wimpy. Or Wimpy's playing with you. I'm not quite sure what's going on. 1974, you were like first or second in this area for your 440 run and your 220, and you went to the University of Kentucky for a weekend to compete up with all the children from all over the state that had won in their area. And here you are getting ready to get on the bus. And this is the dorm room that you stayed at U of K. It was so hard on me to put you on that bus as young as you were and let you go away for a whole weekend. But I know it was a good experience for you. And here you were, getting a second place medal in your age group for track. Look at how proud you look, and we were so proud of you. They're a busy day. This was after I had met Chuck, and we all went over to the locks and watched the big boats come through the locks. I'm not exactly sure, I can't see it real good, but I think that's Greg and Jeff and Karen and Jackie and Gordy and I. This was a track and field day out to Bellwood Children's Home in Anchorage, Kentucky. And approximately 10 of the Presbyterian churches in the Louisville area sent their youth sports team out to Bellwood, and they were in competition for different athletic endeavors. And here you are on an obstacle course. I'm not sure whether our church won any prizes that day, but we all sure had a lot of fun. In the summer of 1974, Uncle Don and Aunt Ruth came down to visit us, and they took you up to Aunt Betty's to spend the summer. And here's my little chickadees getting ready to go. I sure missed you all while you were gone too. They stopped at the Space Center in Wapakoneta, Ohio, and you got to go through the museum and play on some of the airplanes, and you really enjoyed that. There's Uncle Cliff taking everybody for a ride in the tub of the backhoe. You all sure enjoyed that. Must have been when I went up to pick you up. That's our car in the back, and it has the same apparatus on top that Uncle Don had on his car when he picked you up to bring you up north. I think maybe that's your bicycles. Look at how much you've grown over the months. This was on a cool fall day when you three boys and some of your friends rode your bicycles from Hikes Point out to Anchorage, out to Chuck's house. I think that's probably approximately 7 or 8 miles. I didn't know about it, I can tell you that, not until afterwards anyway. This was taken up to Lake Rudolph up in Santa Claus, Indiana. We went up there in early December of 1984 with Chuck and his children. And here we are having a picnic. It looks like you're shoving something in my mouth, Jeff. Oh, I can see now you're roasting marshmallows in a little fire pot. There's all 7 of you. Let me see, what is that you're climbing on, a whale? You sure had a lot of fun that day. After eating our lunch at Lake Rudolph and spending a lot of time at Santa Claus Land, then we went to the Lincoln State Park and you played on the toys there. And there's Karen and Jackie and Greg and Jeff and Charlene. Poor little Karen looks like she's hanging, doesn't she? She's so tiny. There's Uncle Cliff out shoveling the snow on his big toy, the backhoe. He had more fun with that and was able to do so many things with it. Do you remember the winter, Jeff, that we went up to Michigan and you all went snowmobile riding with Mark out in the woods? And you built a big fire and you and your brother had your feet up to keep your feet warm, and Cordy about burnt the boots right off his feet. That's Uncle Bill at the back there in the red jacket, and that's Craig, and that's Uncle Cliff with the beard. I don't know who that is with their back to the picture. That was taken up to Uncle Cliff and Aunt Betty's up in Tawas City. This is your cousin Jim McKechnie and his family in 1975. Jim lived in California for a number of years and has just recently been transferred to Alabama. Here's you 3 boys again in the backhoe, and Uncle Cliff's standing there watching you. And there you are, Jeff, on the tractor again, or the riding lawnmower, I should say. You used to cut the grass for Aunt Betty almost the whole summers while you were up there. And here you are up to Tawas City on a pair of stilts that you made. On December the 29th, 1975, Chuck and I were married at Harvey Brown Presbyterian Church in St. Matthews, Kentucky. All 7 of you children. After the wedding, we came back to our house on Blossomwood, where some of our friends had a surprise reception for us. Carol Weichel made the cake. And here we are cutting the cake. Chuck gave me a bite. And I gave it right back to him. At Christmas time, I don't know what my present was, but it must have been awful funny. Here you are opening some presents and your dog Fonz is chewing on a bone. That was a nice dog, but every time he got in the car he got sick and threw up. This was a camping trip that we all went on out to General Butler State Park out in Carrollton, Kentucky. And we're collecting a bunch of wood for a fire. This is a camping trip that we made in 1976 up to visit Chuck's sister Janelle and her family in Chillicothe, Ohio. That's a nice picture of you and Chuck. Must have been a special occasion, but I don't remember what it was. Is that what you call a pinhead? I think that's when you have the braces on your teeth also. Look at that pretty smile. That's a $3,000 smile. There you are, standing outside the door on Blossomwood Drive. This is a trip that we took on the Bella Louisville with Harvey Brown Presbyterian Church. And there's Jackie and Kevin and Jeff and Karen and... is that Greg or Gordy? I can't tell. There's a couple empty seats, so somebody's probably up running around. This is a camp out that you went on for the weekend with Harvey Brown. I'm not sure what you're doing, it's too dark. In the summer of '76, Chuck hooked the camping trailer up to our van for us, and you 7 children and I started out. We spent about a month. We went up to Royal Oak and picked up Annie, Jack, and Grandma, and then we went up to St. Ignace and Sault Ste. Marie, and up we watched the ships come through the locks and came back down to Aunt Betty's in Tawas City. Most of this time, Jeff, you were the one that hooked and unhooked the trailer for us. And here you are feeding the birds at a bird sanctuary in Alpena, Michigan. When we got to Mackinac, Annie Jack took you 6 older children on a ferry boat across the Straits of Mackinac to Mackinac Island, where you spent the day. You rented bicycles and rode them all over the island. And had an ice cream cone in one of the little cafes. At the end of an exhausting day, you came back into the dock in Mackinac where Grandma and Kevin and I picked you up. Grandma and Kevin and I had spent the day shopping in Mackinac and St. Ignace and sightseeing. This is a funny picture. It wasn't too funny then, but it's funny now. This is a campground that we stayed at, and Annie Jack, she wanted to help empty the holding tanks on the trailer. And you're explaining to her how to do it, Jeff. Well, she was doing really good. She hooked the hose and she stuck it in the sewer and opened up the lever, and when she did, she didn't have the hose pushed down in the sewer far enough. And when everything started to come out, the hose came up and everything flew all over her. And she had poop and toilet paper all over. And there was a fence behind her, so when she went to jump back, she couldn't go anywhere. I don't remember how we cleaned her off, but I'm sure we must have. We stopped at Aunt Betty's in Tawas City and unhooked the trailer, and I took the van and went on down to Saginaw and picked up Chuck. And he flew in and met us in Saginaw and traveled with us on the way home. We were up to Aunt Betty's. Our cousin Gail and Patty came from California, and there's Gail in the back of her pickup truck, and there's you, Jeff, and Karen. And here's you and Karen sitting on the ground playing with a frog. Boy, it didn't take much to make you happy in those days. And here we are in Aunt Betty's. This looks like the family room. Look at the rollaways lined up, and she's got tables all over the place. There was really a crowd of us there. And here's a bunch of us standing outside of Aunt Betty's. There's Aunt Margaret, and me, and Aunt Dolores, and Aunt Betty, and there's Chuck and Karen, and that little redheaded must be Kyle. And there's David, and Janice, looks like Tara, and Karen, and Jeff, and Greg, and Margie, and Kim, and Tina. That must be Bobby. And there's Heather. Is that Charlene? I can't tell. I don't know who that is behind Aunt Dolores. Right there, I can't see. We are at the Cleveland Zoo, visiting the polar bears. Chuck and his father took the 7 of you to the Cleveland Zoo on a weekend that we spent in Cleveland. And there you are again. Look at how little Kevin is. He was only, what, 4 years old then? Here we are again in the fall up to Lincoln State Park in Indiana. And there I am, and Jeff and Jackie, and Charlene and Karen. There's Charlene in her purple pants. Remember how much she liked the color purple then. Looks like I'm getting down off that roller. I've had enough. Poor Charlene looks pooped too. End of 7. During your Christmas break in 1976 from Florida, or from school, the 9 of us plus Grandma Miller all went to Florida. And there's Chuck and I in front of an orange grove. Here you are putting up the Christmas tree. Here we are in 1977, our last time out on Renata, before Chuck sold her. This is Christmas of 1977 with Aunt Betty. And there's your grandfather Miller in 1977. This picture was taken in 1978. This is a track and field day out to Bellwood Children's Home. This was our church softball team, and there's Gordy and Charlene and you, Jeff. Is that Jackie? And Greg and Karen and Kevin. And there's Dwayne Cox, and he was your coach. You must be watching TV. There's Grandma Miller, sitting in our kitchen on Auburn Circle. She had been to a senior citizens meeting and was learning how to make a decoration to put on top of a Christmas package, and that's what she's doing. She used to love to make little craftsy things. Here you are out in the dinghy boat on Lake Huron. Haven't you got that dinghy boat? I thought Chuck gave it to you. And there's Chuck in our boat out in Lake Huron. I think he's waiting for you to come back with the dinghy to take him to shore. Here you all are up on the beach in front of the big cabin. There's Kevin, and that's you, Jeff. They've really got you buried. And Greg, and there's Gordy and Charlene. I think that was your friend Jimmy. Doesn't that look like fun? This was a trip that Grandma Miller and Aunt Margaret and Aunt Betty took up to Durham, Ontario, Canada in 1978 to visit a distant cousin of theirs by the name of Ethel. And Ethel at that time was like in her late 80s, and she lived out in the wilderness in this kind of a cabin type house. It had no inside plumbing and no electricity. And she had lived there virtually all of her life and didn't miss any of those things. And Aunt Betty and Aunt Margaret and Mother used to go up periodically and take her things and spend some time with her. And she was very healthy and very able to do things by herself. And this was probably the last trip that these three sisters took together. Aunt Margaret passed away shortly after this. Jeffrey, you sure do weird things with your hair. I'm not sure what you've done there. It looks like you've curled it. And you always got upset because you had so many curls. That wreath there behind your head hanging on the fireplace is a pine cone wreath that Grandma Miller made us. This was taken a weekend that Chuck and I took you three boys and went down to Operaland in Nashville, Tennessee. But I was lucky. I'm the only one that was able... What is that, a giraffe? Yeah, I was able to ride on the giraffe. Here you are up to Aunt Betty's swimming pool. Here's you diving in the water. There's your brother Gordon and yourself holding Kelly. This was shortly after your cousin David and his wife Janice adopted little Kelly. Kelly just loves you boys, and she just loved to crawl all over you when she was littler. You were always making something, Jeffrey. This is one of your new inventions.